In the dead of night, on December 8, 2025, a chilling report echoed through Ukrainian command centers. Over 45,000 Russian troops had vanished from the front lines. In the past month alone, their armored might shredded by relentless Ukrainian defenses. But near Pokrovsk in Donetsk Oblast, where the war's brutal grind had turned streets into kill zones, Russian forces were gambling big. A massive convoy of T-90 tanks thundered through the fog-shrouded fields backed by BMP-3 infantry carriers and BTR-90 armored personnel carriers, all shrouded in electronic jamming and smokescreens to evade the ever-watchful eyes above. This wasn't just a probe, it was a spearhead assault aimed at cracking Ukrainian lines wide open, capturing key supply hubs and shifting the momentum in Moscow's favor. Commanders in the Kremlin had poured millions into this push, equipping the T-90s with reactive armor thermal sights and anti-drone netting, convinced that sheer firepower would overwhelm the defenders. The convoy snaked through tree lines and ravines, engines growling like beasts in the dark as infantry rode atop the vehicle's rifles at the ready for dismounts. It seemed unstoppable, a classic Russian blitz, the kind that had steamrolled through parts of Donbass in earlier phases of the war. But hold on tight, because what happened next turned this ironclad advance into a flaming graveyard. Ukrainian F-16 fighting Falcons, freshly integrated into the Air Force's arsenal after months of NATO training, were already airborne on a routine patrol pilots from the 40th Tactical Aviation Brigade. Call signs Viper 1 and Viper 2 soared at 10,000 feet. Their radars piercing the night. These weren't outdated Soviet jets. These were upgraded Block 70 Vipers armed with AGM, 88 HARMs for suppressing air defenses, your JDAM precision bombs, and AN-120 AMRAAMs for any aerial threats. The F-16's AN/APG-83 AESA radars scanned the ground below, picking up the heat signatures of the convoy's engines despite the jamming. Contact bearing 180 multiple heavies moving fast. Viper 1 radioed back to base. The intel flowed in real time from ground spotters and Orion drones, hovering at safe altitudes confirming the threat. 12 T-90s leading the charge, flanked by 15 BMPs. Loaded with Spetsnaz troops and trailing artillery trucks hauling 2 S-19 MST-S howitzers. This convoy was a beast designed to punch through to Pokrovsk's outskirts and establish a bridgehead for follow-on forces. Russian tactics here were straight out of their doctrine. Use the T-90's 125mm smoothbore guns to suppress forward positions, while BMPs disgorged infantry to clear trenches. Smoke generators belched thick clouds, mixing with the winter mist to obscure thermal imaging, and electronic warfare vans jammed Ukrainian comms, trying to blind the defenders. The column advanced in a staggered formation, tanks spaced 50 meters apart to avoid cluster kills, with scouts on motorcycles probing for mines. Crews inside the T-90s sweated under their helmets, scanning periscopes for ambushes while commanders barked orders over encrypted radios. Push harder. Reach the ridgeline before dawn. The landscape around Pokrovsk favored this move. Flat fields, broken by occasional ditches, and abandoned farms offering straight shots to Ukrainian strongpoints. Russian planners had studied satellite imagery timing, the assault for low visibility to dodge drone swarms. Anti-aircraft systems like Pantsir S-1 trailed the rear, their radars sweeping the skies for threats. It was a calculated risk. If they broke through, Pokrovsk could fall within days, cutting off Ukrainian logistics to the east. But Ukraine's defenses weren't sleeping deep in a hardened bunker. Near Kramatorsk, operators from the 72nd Mechanized Brigade analyzed the feeds, F-16s in position. Authorized strike came the order. Viper 1 and Viper 2 dove to 5,000 feet, activating their sniper. Advanced targeting pods to lock onto the lead. T-90, the pod's infrared cameras cut through the smoke, highlighting the tank's exhaust plumes like beacons. Fox 3, Viper 1 called launching 2 AGM-88 HARMS. At the convoy's radar vans, the missiles streaked down at Mach 3, homing on the emissions from the Pantsir system's boom. The first harm slammed into a radar truck erupting in a fireball. That lit up the night, shrapnel rained down, disabling the nearest Pantsir's turret. Panic rippled through the Russian ranks as alarms blared. Incoming missiles, evasive, but convoys don't evade like jets. They scattered clumsily, tanks veering off the dirt road into muddy fields. The second harm found its mark on another EW vehicle, silencing the jamming signals and restoring Ukrainian comms. Now the F-16S had a clear shot. Viper 2 rolled in next, releasing a pair of GBU-39 small-diameter bombs, precision-guided munitions that glided silently toward the clustered BMPs. The bombs' GPS INS guidance ensured pinpoint accuracy even in the chaos. The first SDB struck a BMP-3 dead center, its 250-pound warhead penetrating the thin roof armor and detonating inside. Troops screamed as the vehicle exploded from within ammunition, cooking off in secondary blasts that flipped the wreck onto its side flames, engulfed the infantry compartment, forcing survivors to bail out into the open, where Ukrainian snipers from hidden positions picked them off. The second bomb hit a trailing artillery truck, vaporizing the MSAAS howitzer and scattering shells like deadly confetti. Russian gunners abandoned their posts, diving for cover as unexploded ordnance detonated around them. The convoy's momentum shattered tanks, halted to return fire, their 125mm cannons booming blindly into the sky tracers, arcing harmlessly past the agile F-16 Vipers. Viper 1 circled back for another pass, this time unleashing a volley of Hydra, 70 rockets from its pods. The unguided rockets rippled out in a deadly fan, peppering the T-90 line. One rocket struck the reactive armor on a lead tank, triggering the explosive panels but failing to penetrate. Yet the shockwave damaged the optics, blinding the crew. Another Hydra found a weak spot on a BTR-90's wheel, shredding tires and immobilizing it in the mud. Russian infantry dismounted in a frenzy, setting up PKM machine guns to lay suppressive fire. But the F-16s were too high, too fast. Switch to drones, finish them. Base command ordered, enter the Ukrainian drone swarm, a mix of FPV kamikaze drones and Switchblade 600 loitering munitions launched from nearby positions. These weren't hobby toys. They were battle-tested killers guided by operators using feeds from the F-16's targeting pods, relayed via secure data links. The first FPV drone buzzed in low, evading the T-90's anti-drone nets by diving under them. It slammed into the engine grill of a stalled tank, its 2-kilogram warhead igniting fuel lines. The T-90 erupted in a massive inferno turret, popping off in a classic jack-in-the-box explosion as stored ammo detonated. Crew members ejected through hatches only to be cut down by follow-up drone strikes. A Switchblade hovered briefly over a cluster of BMPs, its operator selecting the juiciest target, a command vehicle with antennas bristling. The munition dove piercing the roof and exploding inside, killing officers and scrambling radio comms. Chaos reigned. Russian troops fired wildly at the buzzing threats, but the drones were small, fast, and relentless. One T-90 tried to ram through the wreckage, only to trigger a buried TM-62 anti-tank mine planted by Ukrainian sappers days earlier. The blast lifted the 46-ton beast off its tracks, snapping the hull and spilling the crew into the dirt. Artillery joined the fray. Ukrainian M777 howitzers positioned 20 kilometers back received coordinates from the F-16 shells arced in high explosive rounds, cratering the road and flipping vehicles. A direct hit on a fuel trucks created a river of fire, engulfing 2 nearby BTRs and roasting infantry alive. The convoy, once a cohesive force, fragmented into burning pockets. Surviving tanks reversed desperately, treads churning mud as they tried to retreat, but the F-16s weren't done. Viper 2 locked on with an AGM-65 Maverick missile, infrared seeker homing on a T-90's hot engine. The missile streaked down, impacting the rear and cooking the power pack. The tank ground to a halt, smoke billowing, as the crew abandoned it. Viper 1 followed with a strafing run, its 20mm Vulcan cannon chewing up exposed troops and soft-skinned vehicles. Bullets ricocheted off armor but shredded tires and antennas, turning the retreat into a rout. Russian Pantsir systems, what was left of them, launched SAM's 9 M335 missiles, climbing toward the jets, but the F-16's AN/ALQ-213 countermeasures suite jammed the seekers' flares, decoying the heat seekers into empty sky. One missile exploded harmlessly, 500 meters away, shrapnel pinging off Viper 1's canopy, but causing no critical damage. The pilots pulled up banking hard in a 6G turn to evade ground fire from 30mm autocannons on the BMPs below. The carnage was total 8 T-90s destroyed or disabled 10 BMPs. In flames, artillery pieces scattered like toys over 200 Russian troops lay dead or wounded, their screams drowned by crackling fires. The survivors scattered into the fields, pursued by Ukrainian ground forces advancing under the F-16's Overwatch drones picked off stragglers, hiding in ditches, dropping grenades with surgical precision. This wasn't just a skirmish. It was a massacre exposing the vulnerabilities of Russian armored tactics. In 2025, the T-90, once hailed as invincible, proved no match for integrated air-ground ops. F-16S providing real-time intel and strikes drones, exploiting gaps, artillery sealing the deal. Russian doctrine reliant on mass and momentum crumbled against Ukraine's agile tech-driven defense estimates, pegged the losses at over 100 million in hardware alone, not counting the manpower drain as the sun rose over Pokrovsk Ukrainian troops, secured the wreckage salvaging what they could, while engineers mined the approaches for the next inevitable push. The F-16 pilots landed back at base, their jets scarred but intact, hailed as heroes who turned the tide. But the war grinds on what if Russia adapts with better anti-air nets or hypersonic countermeasures. Could this be the end of tank convoys as we know them, replaced by dispersed drone-heavy swarms? Or is it just a blip before Moscow's endless reserves overwhelm the battlefield? Is evolving fast, where a single jet can dismantle a brigade? Ukrainian commanders reviewed the footage, praising the seamless coordination between air assets and ground teams. This strike boosted morale across the front lines, proving that Western tech could level the playing field against numerical superiority. Russian state media downplayed the losses, claiming it was a minor setback, but leaked reports suggested panic in the ranks, with desertions spiking in armored units. Stick around for more frontline breakdowns. Hit like if this got your adrenaline pumping. Share with fellow military buffs.